Okay, so having given you sort of the more favorable way of thinking about public interest groups, now I've decided that what I'm going to do is sort of get back to what people know about interest groups, and that is that they do present some problems in a democracy. And I'm not going to touch on the big issues. I want to touch on the things that we know that are factual, not just, lobbyists are bad, interest groups are bad, anything like that at all, because I don't like those kind of broad statements. That's too simple. And what we're doing now in this class is we're trying to develop a more sophisticated understanding of how politics works. And so to do that, I want us to have a more sophisticated explanation. So I want to identify 4 specific ways in which private interest groups, and if you remember, private interest groups are the groups that are working for private goods. And private goods are goods that just benefit members of the group. So it can be corporations trying to get benefits from themselves. It can be labor unions trying to get benefits from themselves. It can be any particular group that's trying to get benefits for itself. And they're not worried about what other people are getting. So I want to talk about the difference between private interest groups and the advantages that they have over public interest groups. We already know one advantage is the idea that with private interest groups, right, they have public interest groups have the free rider problem. The free rider problem, that there are people who, if you're trying to work, if you're really interested in going ahead and creating cleaner water in the Santa Clarita Valley, and I would like it too, but I'm really not, I'm lazy, so I'd rather just sort of kick back and not do anything. You go ahead and you do your work, and then if you succeed, I get clean water, and if you don't succeed, well, it stays the way it was. So in many ways, I don't have an incentive to do anything. I'll say, like, I hope you're successful, good luck, go, get that clean water. But I don't really have an incentive to do anything. So with that in mind, let's focus on 4 specific things where private interest groups, interested in private goods, have advantages over public interest groups that are interested in collective goods that benefit everybody, not just members of the group. Well, the first thing that public interest groups have is they have just more people. Now, I'm not talking about membership or anything like that, because some private interest groups don't have a whole lot of people. They have more people in Washington, D.C. They have more people walking around the halls of Congress. They have more people in Sacramento, more lobbyists to walk around knocking on the doors of congressmen, senators, state senators, assemblymen. They have more people just to be in people's offices. So if you've got a bunch of people who are interested in going ahead and helping the banking industry, and they've got all kinds of people crawling through the houses of Congress trying to knock on people's doors and talking, to them. And maybe you've got, let's say, 2 or 3 people who are working for a consumer organization that are trying to help out the average consumer. Who's going to have the advantage? Right? The people with the more money, the people with more people knocking on doors, they have a greater influence just because there's more people around to talk to congressmen, to talk to their staff, to talk to people about what they want done. Second advantage, they have more money. Well, why do they have more money? Well, if you think about, let's think about a labor union, for example. People who belong to a labor union, what do they have to pay to be in the labor union? They have to pay dues. They have to pay dues. So the labor unions have a steady stream of money coming in all the time. It's the same thing with certain kind of interest groups like the AMA, the American Medical Association, private interest group, looking out for the interests of doctors. To be part of the AMA, you have to pay dues. And so the AMA, they always have money coming in. Now let's think about public interest groups. The NRA, the National Rifle Association. You don't really have to go ahead and pay dues to be a member of the NRA. You may want to pay dues. They may ask you to pay dues, but nobody's really going to kick you out of the NRA because you didn't pay any dues. Right? Same thing, the Sierra Club, interested in the environment. They'll ask for donations, but if you don't want to donate, but you're still into the cause, they'll still count you as one of their members. So private interest groups have more money. Okay. Now the other thing too is, and it's sort of like they're connected, because they have more money than public interest groups. That's part of the reason why they can afford to have more people. And it's also the reason that they have more information. See, again, information is really important. Private interest groups can go ahead and pay to do the kind of research that needs to get done to go ahead and help out members of Congress when they're trying to write laws. if somebody's trying to pass a law that has to do with, the regulating corn, and I'm a company and I'm an interest group, and I can go ahead and afford to have people do all kinds of studies on corn, I'm going to have an advantage over another group that can't afford to have all these studies done. And not only am I going to be able to go ahead and have the studies done, but I'm also going to be able to distribute my information to more people. And I can afford to have books bound up for every member of Congress and their entire staff, right? The public interest group that doesn't have that much money, they maybe have, they can put together 10 folders and hand them out very carefully and say, hey, when you're done with it, give it back to me, right? Private interest groups, they just have more money, they have more, and so they can do more research, and then they can pay for the information to get out there. But there's probably the next thing that I'm going to talk about, the fourth area, is probably the one that's sort of the most questionable in many ways. It says on the notes they have more familiarity with the people in power. And this actually gets back to money too, because everything gets back to money. Suppose I'm the member, I used to be chairman of the Agricultural Committee. I've been sitting in Congress for 25 years, and then finally I decided to retire. Been on the Agricultural Committee, the chairman. I know a lot about agricultural policy. And I know all the people who are involved in making agricultural policy because I was one of the key players for 20 years. So I decided to retire. You, on the other hand, you work for a public interest group. You're interested in going ahead and making sure that dairy food is, the cows are treated humanely. And so you're interested in dairy stuff because you want to make sure that cows are treated humanely. You're part of the Cow Humanely Treatment Society or whatever. I don't know, make up something. Now, so you want to go lobby the congressman about something having to do with, or a congressman or a senator or somebody in the Department of Agriculture. You want to go ahead and talk to them about your feelings about going ahead and the ethical treatment of cows. So you walk up and you knock on the door and you say, hi there, I'm whatever your name is. I'm here to speak with Congressman so-and-so about treating cows better. And the person who's sitting there in the congressman's office goes, well, the congressman isn't in right now. I'm very sorry the congressman isn't in right now, but if you would go ahead and you would give me your study, I'd be happy to go ahead and show it to him. And you go, okay, and you give it to him. And they take your study and they say, thank you very much, we'll get back to you. You walk out the door, they take your study, they go, they throw it away. They don't care. They get those all the time, right? Now, they're sitting there, knock on the door. So it isn't. I walk in, I go, hey, how's it going? Now they know me because I was in Congress for 25 years. They go, Phil, what's up, man? Do a little congressional high five, secret handshake. I can't show you, I'll show you down here. There we go, that was the secret handshake. We do the secret handshake and they go, so what's up? And I say, hey, I'm here to talk to, and instead of calling him the congressman, his name is Joe, because I know the guy because he's been on my committee before. I said, I was here to talk to Joe. And they say, what? And the person says, well, what about? I said, well, I'm working for the Dairy Association now. Because, see, when I retired, the Dairy Association called me up and they said, hey, why don't you come work for us? Here's how much we'll pay you. And I went, damn, you'll pay me this much? And they said, yeah, absolutely. So they go ahead and they hire me. They say, hey, look, this is what we want Congress to do. I go, no, okay, let me go see if I can talk to some people. I go knock on the door. We do our little secret handshake that I can't tell you about. And they just told you, Congressman isn't in, right? I say, so is he around? They go, yeah, hell yeah. Hey, and they yell back to the congressman, or they call the congressman. He comes walking out and goes, hey, how you doing? We give each other a hug, secret handshake, the whole thing, and now he's talking to me. Because he knows me. And not only do I know that guy, but I know everybody else. Not only do I know everybody else, but I know the rules that run that place. So when I talk about more familiarity with the people in power, what they do, what these interest groups will do, is they'll hire really powerful people who have retired from Congress to go ahead and act as lobbyists. So that when I go ahead and knock on the door, and I used to be the congressman, or I used to be the chairman of the committee, and now the guy who used to work under me, well, he's running the committee. Well, I knock on the door and I say, hey, how's it going? They're glad to see me. They open the door. They just told you, hey, he's not here, and they took your file and they threw it in the trash. With mine, they go ahead and they say, here, we go into the office, we sit down, we talk about how's your wife, how's your kids, what's up? He said, so what are you here for? I said, well, I'm working for the Dairy Association these days, and they've got some concerns about this bill, and we wanted to talk to you. Sure, what do you got? And next thing you know, I'm talking, and I'm telling them what my organization wants. And the reason I got in the door is because I know people. And the reason that they can afford to hire me, they got money. And they're smart. They know who to hire. And this is the way, these are 4 ways in which private interest groups have an advantage. People who are working for things that just benefit themselves have an advantage over public interest groups who are working for collective goods that benefit everybody. They have more people roaming around the halls of Congress or Sacramento. They have more money because they can charge dues to their members, whereas public interest groups usually have to rely on donations. They have more information, in part because they focus on the issue all the time, but because they can afford to not only do the research, but they can afford to disseminate. Disseminate means like sort of to give out. They can afford to give out the information, and they have more familiarity with the people in power because they're hiring people who know the inside out of the whole thing. That's how private interest groups go ahead and have their influence. And I think it's probably fair to say that when that happens, it's not necessarily good or bad for democracy, but a lot of times I think it seems to work out that those people are not interested in sort of the country as a whole. They're really looking out for themselves, and that sometimes cannot be good for us. So that's it for interest groups, and see you in the next chapter or lecture.